Hello, welcome or welcome back to the Instech podcast. Zoya here, and this week Matthew is joined by Jonathan Rake. As CEO of Risk Data Solutions at Swiss Re, Jonathan's helping clients, insurers, corporates, and the public sector move from static risk views to decisions powered by real-time, trusted insight. He shares why Swiss Re built a single source of truth, how integrated intelligence gets data to the right user at the right moment, and the partnership playbook, enabling pricing and underwriting workflows on one side, enriching models with AI and machine learning on the other. We also go inside Fathom, local flood accuracy at global scale, and the case for model blending. So tune in to find out more on what changes when you bring Swiss Re's internal tools to market. Where does certainty meet speed? And which risks are reshaping buying behavior right now? Lean in, grab a coffee, and enjoy the conversation.
Jonathan, it's great to be talking to you. You're normally based in Zurich, I think, but you're actually in London today.
I am indeed. I'm sitting in the, as it's affectionately known, the Gherkin building in London. Good morning.
You think you have more luck getting into your office coming in from Zurich than I did from South London trying to get into the office today because all the tube network seems to be down. So great to speak to you. Last podcast I saw you did was actually on a boat in Monte Carlo. So I'm afraid we don't neither have a boat nor a sea view, but I'm sure we'll be okay. So I was just going to give a bit of intro to Swiss Re and then we're going to kick things off if that's okay.
Excellent. And that was on a boat. It was also very hot and humid, so I'm more comfortable at this point in time.
Well, we're great fans of the Reinsurance podcast with Ben and Jared, so it was really good to listen to that one. Yeah. But hopefully this will be we'll cover some different areas or additional areas to what we covered on that. So Swiss Re doesn't need much introduction, particularly people in the insurance world. You're one of the largest reinsurance companies. You're helping insurers, also corporations and governments manage complex risk. You're known, amongst other things, for expertise in catastrophe, life, financial risks, and playing a central role in global resilience, so sort of helping your clients manage their risks, not just through insurance. And would like to have Swiss Re support as an Instech member. Jonathan, you are CEO of Risk Data Solutions, and it's a role you took on relatively recently. Really looking forward to talking a little bit more about that. Is there anything I've missed in there that's critical, just in terms of context, before we kick off?
I think that's great. You've captured it well.
One of the questions I want to sort of jump straight into then is this sort of the reason for the existence for Risk Data Solutions. Swiss Re, as I said, is kind of primarily known as a reinsurer and insurer, but this is a slightly different departure for you in terms of offering solutions for your clients. Can you just talk a little bit about why Swiss Re sort of moved in that direction for offering data analytics as well as reinsurance?
Yeah, I think it's an evolution more than a departure from the existing. But you're right. Obviously, at the core of our business is insurance and reinsurance, which really we're talking about risk transfer. And I think the first sort of answer I'd give you to the question is the need. On our core business, on our risk transfer business, this is obviously extremely well-established insurance practices over many years. The company's been operating for more than 150 years. And it's relatively stable in the sense that risk being transferred from a client to an insurance company and onto a reinsurance company. And that's why you get obviously deep expertise and deep structures built around that relatively stable long-term way of operating. It's very different in the sort of risk data solutions world. In this sense, it's everything that the company's offering on a commercial basis that is not risk transfer. So it goes beyond risk transfer. Why I say it's different and compare it to that stability of the risk transfer is we're heavily impacted from a client needs perspective by changes in the market. This could be climate changes, this could be regulatory changes, supply chain changes. There's many things that are impacting clients, and I'll talk a little bit about what our client base is later on. And the need to stay relevant is quite fast-paced because of those changes. So I think that's the first thing is there's a need and there's rapidly changing risk, as we know, and there's interconnectivity of risk, and all of that is driving the need for better data and insights for decision making. So that's the first piece. The second piece on the why we're doing this is because we actually, I talk about it as sort of being able to turn our company inside out. And what I mean by this is actually utilizing the capabilities that we use for ourselves as an organization, the data and insights tools, models, analytics, etc., and using those for the benefit of the clients. Ultimately, the purpose of Swiss Re around making the world more resilient is also about helping our companies, our corporate companies, insurance companies, public sector, be more resilient themselves. And so being able to do this meant actually a number of years of investment. 3 or 4 years on a journey of getting what we would call our sort of core data set, or our single source of truth as we refer to it, which is really our underlying data platform in place. And once we'd achieved that really enabled us to build scalable models, but also to utilize our capabilities for the benefit of our clients. So the need is there very clearly. We know that data and technology are rapidly changing in the business, and we can talk about insights and the demand for insights, but also was the readiness. And that's the part about Swiss Re being ready to do more and support clients more with those capabilities.
No, that makes complete sense. I mean, I'd add one more, just from my own knowledge of Swiss Re over the decades, which is you've got great access to loss data and working with your clients. So in terms of when you build the data analytics, you've actually got the way to build those models that, yes, it's sort of access to data that others might not have. So I can see how it makes a lot of sense. But Jonathan, just talking a bit about your own background. So you've come out of a career in mainstream insurance and reinsurance. You spent about 14 years at Zurich. You've now had 10 years at Swiss Re. It's quite a big shift to move from the insurance side of the business into more of a data analytics role, albeit that's critical in terms of, I'm sure, how you've been helping your clients. But what was it for you personally that motivated you to take on this new role?
Yeah, it is a big shift, and actually that time has primarily been on the primary insurance side, as you've alluded to, with 2 large multinational Swiss companies. But it has been a shift. But look, firstly, I had a call with our group CEO, who's quite compelling, and that starts the thinking. But the real reason why I was interested, I'll tell you quickly a short story, which was long before that moment in time. I have an involvement in a leadership program with the World Economic Forum, and we were having a session with a great panel, and there was a CTO of one of the global investment banks who was challenging the audience. It was a small audience, but he was saying, you're all a bunch of leaders in your own rights. How many of you are focusing on upskilling it was financial services primarily focused. How many of you are upskilling your employees on topics of data and AI and technology? And, nearly all the hands went up. And the next question was, how many of you are upskilling yourself? And the theory being, of course, in a moment in time to get to leadership, you're probably quite experienced in your career, but you've probably missed a lot of these trends. And so that moment really resonated. And so the moment I did have this conversation and an opportunity to do something that's still within the organization that I love working for, and is still within the industry that I've been in for my career, but a totally different side of it, that's very much obviously relevant for the future, and able to sort of have that opportunity real time, hands-on to upskill myself on these topics and themes was really what resonated for me. Underlying under all of that, I'd been in the role running Asia Pacific for corporate solutions for Swiss Re for going on 7 years. So I was ready for a change and like a challenge. Maybe just one other point to highlight it. It's obviously, it is a change, but actually we've been working with clients in this space and within my role, actually the sort of genesis of part of our capability within Risk Data Solutions started in Singapore under a project that I sponsored for a very bright young individual in my team who really started working on this concept of bringing our models around the climate risk scores and scenarios and utilizing what we use for our own company for the benefit of clients. And the Singapore government was, GIC was one of our first named clients. So there's a background and there's a nice story that sort of connects to where I am now from the starting point on some of these capabilities as well.
Last point about sponsoring someone who had a project reminds me of a term I've heard. We all know what a mentor is when you sort of support somebody who's more junior, but there's a term I've heard as well, which is a minotaur, which is you find somebody earlier in their career who basically educates you. It sounds like that was a bit of the role there for your learning from somebody else. And then more broadly, I mean, on the upskilling, once you sort of had that idea, what have you been doing to basically build out those new skills?
I actually try and get as much of my time to be with clients and in the market and understanding the market, because we work with very sophisticated clients. I said I'd come back and mention our client range. It's effectively the full suite of Swiss Re clients. So large corporates, multinationals, insurance companies, public sector, sophisticated clients. You can learn a lot from them. A lot of these companies are very diverse industries. Some of them more advanced than our own industry around use of technology, data, data and in analytics, etc. So just really spending time early on, and as much time as I could, trying to, yes, read up about how things work in this market, but really understanding what are the pain points and what are the needs and what are we trying to resolve. And then obviously navigating the wider organization and building that understanding internally so I can kind of connect the dots. So that was more the sort of personal focus, and I continued to do that. I kept a document which was called New Order. I don't know why it was named that. Maybe there's a song playing in the background. And that just populates. And every now and then I go back and read it, but it's kind of just capturing lots and lots of insights because you're learning and you lose a lot of this stuff. And every time you hear something that's kind of unique or insightful, I capture it. And I did a lot of that early on. And that's been helpful to go back and refresh that. But I think the point that I would make is the fundamentals are there from a leadership perspective. I'd been fortunate. You talk about mentor. I had a fantastic early stage of my career mentor who pushed me and gave me great opportunities. I was very, very fortunate in that sense. So, coming out the back end of 14, 15 years of sort of country management or regional management roles, leadership roles, puts me, I think, in good stead with managing teams and projects and strategy and aligning teams behind a common cause, and all of that was stuff I enjoy and stuff I got deep experience. So the learning was around really just understanding exactly what we were bringing as relevant solutions, and that starts with customer and the customer needs. So that's where I really focused a lot of my attention. And the exciting thing for me was I'd worked a lot with corporate customers over many years, but I hadn't actually worked with our peers as insurance companies outside of social networking. And so that's been fantastic. And then also getting closer to the public sector.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased you mentioned that. I mean, any company, in my experience, you look at who's been successful, they have spent that time on the ground talking to customers. What are the sort of strong themes coming out? Or I'll let you have two, or at least more than two if you want, but because they're going to be slightly different, I suspect, for the corporates versus the insurers. But is there anything that, as you look at your new order that's floating to the surface just now, that's predominantly what people want help with?
Yeah, there is a difference. There's a difference in maturity, but there's also a difference in buying behavior. So I mentioned the different constituents. What we find with, and just sort of to make that differentiation, what we find obviously with corporates is they tend to want to have a better understanding of their own risk. And that can be the physical risk of a, major manufacturing company, for example. In the case of, and that's why we will bucket it that way as well, in the case of insurance companies and the public sector, they tend to obviously looking for better support and understanding of a portfolio of risks, or in the case of public sector, constituency. And that drives different needs and buying behaviors. And so there's a separation, but there's obviously a very big difference in terms of the maturity in the offerings, with sort of deep expertise around models and capabilities, particularly in the insurance space as an example. You said you'd give me two. I would say on the insurance side, a certainty of insights in real time is two themes that we absolutely see. Big data, these are all topics. We know AI is coming in there, but big question mark around the value of data and actually how does that data fit into my world, and how do I actually get it at the right point in time. We talk about something called integrated intelligence within risk data solutions, and the thinking there is how do you turn fragmented data into quality insights for the right user at the right point in time. And so that certainty is now where we're at. You can have all the data in the world, but if it's of no value to you to help you in your decision making, then it's meaningless. And so certainty first, and then that real-time component, because it's a competitive world out there, but also it's a world that's rapidly changing. Risk is changing. So you have to stay on the pulse and know how this risk is today, but also what it's going to look like tomorrow. And so really being able to also set yourselves up in a way that you are interoperable, and you can also work in a way that you can provide those insights at the right time. And often that's real time, to ensure that decisions such as pricing decisions for insurance companies are. So certainty of insights in real time, I would say, on the insurance side. On the corporate side, that's a very interesting, rapidly changing space. But of course, regulation and market trends are driving a lot of the needs there. If we think about some of the stuff around natural catastrophe, climate impacts, etc., there's been a lot of awareness that's been created just about the requirement of these corporates corporates to fit into requirements within their own countries from a regulatory perspective, and we can build capability on the back end of that. But COVID and these other major events has certainly put supply chain and interconnectivity of risk right at the heart of the thinking of not just a risk manager but a CEO. So those trends disrupted supply chains, regulation. These are all big trends that are driving opportunity for us, but real need for large corporates to get a much better understanding of and a greater accuracy of their risk as it stands today, and also how that risk is shaping up. So that would be two on each side.
I've made a list, and there's so much in there. I just want to come back and play it back to you. And then I'm actually very intrigued about your real-time comments. So just plant that little question that's going to come in a minute. So just going to run back over those. So corporates, you mentioned in there regulation, country regulation, market trends, interconnectivity, and supply chain are some of the main ones coming through. And then on the insurance companies, you were talking about they want certainty of insight, they want this real-time assessment, they want what you called integrated intelligence, and also how to make better use or how to use fragmented data and interoperability in there.
Yeah, so just on that last bit, the 2 points from the client side we see are the certainty of insights in the real time. We talk about from our own side integrated intelligence and the sort of operability as a way of actually enabling and delivering on that. But the sort of core need is those two components.
Certainty of insights from your clients and so real time. So for a long time, people have been talking about the difference, particularly because insurance generally it's got an annual renewal cycle. So the difference between what you can do with real-time data versus does it all just get updated annually? Can you just explain a little bit more about when people talk to you about they want this sort of real-time data or real-time insights, what does it actually relate to in practice?
So if you think about the selection of risk or a decision on taking risk from an insurance company perspective or even from a portfolio perspective, they're taking that decision at a point in time with the insights that are available to that company. If you are supporting a company in their risk selection, risk mitigation, risk pricing, you got to be there at the point in time when they're taking that decision. The internal tools and capabilities for many of these companies would enable them to get a view on that risk. Now, that risk is ingested. They're looking at a view of let's say, and in this case, a new risk, a new company. You've got to be able to enrich those capabilities, and you've got to also think about operating in their landscape. And so for us, we take a very strong partnership strategy around this as well, because we don't have all the capabilities to make this happen. So we have, and we can talk about partners later, but we have partners that help enable us on this. And with this partnership strategy, effectively what it's allowing us to do is to pre-integrate our API-driven solutions directly into the insurance software workflows. And this obviously allows mutual clients to consume and action these data and insights at the right point in time. So a lot of it actually gets into tech integration. But the key thing, as I said, is it's the combination of getting quality and then getting it at the right point of time at decision making. There are certain data sets and insights and information that can be called on and don't need to be real time. That's certainly understandable. But often in a business, especially if you think about retail insurance business, where it's a daily ingestion of new opportunities and new risks, it can be slightly different if you're looking at a treaty reinsurance portfolio, for example. And so that's the concept. It's not just for providing capabilities which companies have to come and access yourself. We do that, of course, but it's also bringing yourself into their environment.
Yeah, because there's so many different, real time can mean so many different things in terms of the changing climate environment, the different exposure that companies have from what they're underwriting, sanctions in the political world. And so, it's good to see that's actually happening practically now, because that's certainly been a lot of interest in that. And you reference partners in there. So it'd be good to understand a little bit how you decide at Swiss Re to build or go and, I guess, often the case, go and find someone else that's done the research, but you kind of turn it into something that's usable versus you're partnering with other organizations that can provide you what you need.
I think it would be great to have a definition of partnerships, because it's a word used widely, and obviously we know conceptually what we're talking about. But I think rather than referencing the broader Swiss Re, I'll talk about risk data solutions and how we look at it within our own division on the sort of beyond risk transfer component. I see it across two components. The first is enabling partnerships, and then the second, I would say, is enriching partnerships. So I talked about this integrated intelligence, and on the enabling side, we actually work with various partners. I can mention some of these. HyperX or Hyper Exponential is one, for example, that allows us to deliver some of these, our global NatCat insights directly into clients' technical rating and pricing workflows. That's really at the core of what they offer. So that combination allows us to bring our expertise, obviously, on the NatCat side, and then combine it into pricing workflows on our client side. We work with Insurity, which allows clients to make sort of underwriting decisions with, again, our NatCat data directly powering insights into spatial ski and GIS tools. So that's another example. So we have these enabling partnerships. On the other side, I would say that enriching partnerships, this would be things which are helping us improve our product and innovation. So, of course, again, I talked about sort of APIs, but flexible delivery methods. We have partnerships around that, but also the use of AI. So we're using AI, for example, to determine in some of our products, property products, first floor height on properties, using street view imagery, blend that with flood depth data and uncovering risks at a point of quote. So partnerships in helping us actually get structural data at that point in time. Machine learning is another good example, which we're working, for example, on our wildfire capabilities. So that particular peril that helps us with risk scoring for underwriting, that's enriched by partners to help make that product way more sound. So from a offering and solution perspective, that's really how I look at it, how the team looks at it, is the enabling component to actually bring this integrated insurance component to life and to address those needs around the real time and being there with the right user, and then these enriching capabilities which actually help improve the quality, and that goes a little bit to what I was talking about earlier in terms of certainty of insights. Of course, there's a whole distribution space on partnerships, but that's not really what I'm sort of talking about today. But we do work with Guidewire Claim Center, for example, workflows using rapid damage assessment for pre and post NatCat claims tools. So we have examples of these partnerships with external companies that more on the distribution. But I think for the purpose of the conversation where we're talking about capability, it's really that enriching and enabling component that's super important. And I think the landscape has changed. I think we've got to look at peers as partners and competitors and be very open to that. And I think this is the part where I say getting out there and exploring and getting an understanding, and not just seeing this company as, are they doing something similar, and actually how are they doing something different which might be able to enrich, and what, and really understanding who's bringing what to the partnership is super critical. I think in this space you've got to be very open, because no single company is going to solve the needs around data and technology for large sophisticated clients. We've got to work together.
I really like that enabling, enriching split. I mean, the term insurtech is sort of still used, and but to your point about partners, it can mean different things to different people. I think it's a very helpful way to categorize around what the actual applications are doing. And of course, as you said, distribution is another area, and there are others too. And then on your point about peers and competitors, because of the nature of the Swiss Re business, in many cases you go direct to your clients as opposed to more traditional in the reinsurance market of going, or certainly in the London market of going through brokers. I guess you'd include brokers in there in sort of competition, but also peers and partners, because they're doing a lot in some of the similar areas of building their own tools and analytics. Would that be right to say that you see them as a collaboration as well as competition in some cases?
Absolutely. And of course, with brokers, and a lot of my past has been working very closely with distribution partners. But of course, we have huge institutional relationships with these organizations, and we partner in a number of areas. But yes, specifically if we're talking about things like natural catastrophe models and capabilities and analytics, then we are in some cases a client of some broker capabilities, and in other cases they're positioning us on our own. So yes, you've absolutely captured that effectively. I think the important thing is to be able to categorize and understand what it is that you're trying to solve from your own company, and to be very specific in terms of, because these are big organizations, you can get lost in them very easily, and you can be an afterthought on some of these opportunities. You've got to find that mutual opportunity and be very clear on what you are solving and which part of your full operating model. I think that's important to spend time strategically thinking about it as well.
And then the other company we shouldn't forget I don't know if you call them a partner or you just a part of now Swiss Re, but certainly they've retained their own brand, is Fathom. And very timely, actually, because Fathom is supporting our event tonight. Got over 200 people coming, talking about catastrophe modeling, niche models, wildfire, some of the things you've talked about. If I ask you how it's going, of course you're going to say yes. So maybe just rephrase the question slightly and say, what are the positive outcomes of working with Fathom and how that sort of helps you support your clients? And also, it's a different move for Swiss Re to be acquiring a pure modeling tech company as well. I don't know if there's anybody else you've acquired in that space in recent history.
Also very timely because I'm just back from Bristol, where Fathom is based, and I've spent a few days up there, as I do quite regularly now, and getting to work with the team and understand the capabilities. And I find it a fantastic company, also just culturally, in terms of the way they've sort of grown out of the Bristol University background and keep a real strong value and focus on not only the science but also providing insights into the public domain on the development of their capabilities. And really strong culture and brand, as you referred to. We've had some real breakthroughs. So firstly, what we haven't done is acquire Fathom and absorb this fully into our company from day one. We really wanted to keep them operating and have this hub in Bristol and have their brand and work with clients the way they do, whilst also looking at, of course, those synergies and how we can leverage it better. The first kind of focus area and breakthrough for us was really utilizing Fathom as our kind of center of excellence for flood hazard from peril perspective for the future development of Swiss Re models. And of course, I've talked about partnerships, and there are capabilities out there and other companies, and this obviously is a very positive step, because if you think about it, as with flood, it's global, but it's very local in terms of its characteristics. And so the real strong benefit of Fathom is that accuracy at a local level. And this is also what gives them competitive advantage against some of the big global players. It's a very local peril. And so we need to refresh models. We also need to build models. We've got to build event sets to have NatCat models and bring probabilistic capabilities in and all the things that Swiss Re are strong. So we've taken a decision. We're actually going to be communicating that more broadly in the next couple of weeks. But that's really strong for the partnership over the longer term. The second thing, obviously, then is to look at it as how can this enrich our own capabilities. And what we've done with some of our core products and solutions within Swiss Re and within Risk Data Solutions is start to bring in the Fathom view on flood as it is today, on how that risk is changing. And so we're building that into some of our core tools, our NatCat tools, CatNet, as it's very well known in the market, also on the corporate side with our Risk Data Solutions for corporates. So we're starting to really make better use of what is a world-leading, world-class flood mapping capability and organization. And you learn from each other, because there's always different views on things. And so the other thing I would just sort of point out, which we're really excited about, is model blending. And I'm not going to go into deep technical. I'm probably not licensed to do that anyway. But this is really the concept that you get different views from a modeling perspective and you get a better result because you can take out some of the outliers. So in the case, for example, of flood, you may want to keep all the major characteristics the same. That can be obviously the terrain. It can be the infrastructure. But then you might want to take a different view on the hazard. How would the water disperse? There are different models. And so now what we've actually been doing, it's a bit like plugging in and out the battery, in this case, the hazard. And so utilizing a Swiss Re view and then overlaying that with the Fathom view, and the more advanced Fathom views, and you start to get different curves and you start to get a better accuracy and take out some of those outliers. So model blending is super interesting and is resonating and providing good results because you can back test a lot of this. The challenge, of course, is that it's not a large multinational global Swiss company that's been around for many, many years, right? So you've got to find that right balance between working together, but also ensuring that long-term future is aligned and stable, and we can find how to keep that secret source of what keeps that place and what made it Fathom in the first place, but also align it to sort of core capabilities and standards, and that's the task that I and the team have. But we've got an arrangement which gives us time to get that done, which allows us to really keep Fathom operating and over time figure out where those synergies and opportunities will exist. So I think this is all about learning from past acquisitions and trying to find that healthy balance. So I'm excited about it. I've really enjoyed getting to work with and get to know the Fathom team. They got some fantastic people that do some great things on the product and tech side, but it's also the culture around it that we're trying to preserve and actually continue to build on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people could learn from that concept about how not to kill the innovation when you acquire someone. Somewhat selfishly, but we were very pleased to see that Swiss Re allowed Fathom to have their own marketing budget as well.
Go back after this and check what they're spending on this evening's event, but I'm sure it's all for great value.
They've got a very good deal, and they've even found someone else to support them on the event. So they're not spending all your money, Jonathan. They're finding other people to help them. But I do want to come back on that point that you made about model blending. And one of the things that Fathom got right from the beginning was sort of sharing access to their research, the analytics. It's just so important for people building models. And that, to your point, has allowed the users, including, I'm sure, Swiss Re, to go in there and, as you said, understand some of the assumptions. And these are every insurance company or every corporate needs to have their own view of risk. But to be able to sort of tweak the model, bring an opinion in is a really valuable, and I'm sure I know it's been part of their success as well. So kind of definitely worth reinforcing that for anybody that is thinking about using or building models. And then, Jonathan, I just want to switch to your personal life. I know you've got a family, you've got 2 dogs, you live down in Singapore, you've taken on a new role, you look like you're pretty fit and unstressed and happy. How do you manage all this? Any sort of tips for anybody else sort of trying to juggle all these priorities in their lives and how to stay sane and keep your job?
Yeah, illusion. Look, I think the answer around this is I think everyone has a different passion and focus, and I guess in the sense of the question, I'm fortunate that I have a great passion for sports, whether that's playing sports or watching sports or live sports is my thing, and also with a family that kind of is right at the heart of what we like doing as a family. So it's just about prioritizing what you prioritize, also outdoors and adventure. And so because I prioritize that, you make time for it. If I wasn't so keen on getting outside and playing sports, it might be a low priority and I might not have healthy balance. But because it's such an important part of my own happiness, I get a lot out of it personally and from a family and friends perspective. I do just make time for it and find balance. And I think our industry is also, it encourages that, and it's a good community industry. And actually what I've had wonderful experiences in my career, and you talk about brokers, I've done some of my most fantastic adventures have been together with broker partners and just doing things other than golf, which I do like as well. But and being creative in how you spend time together and build relationships and time. I've also been very fortunate to benefit from the industry. So because I prioritize those things, it gets the time. And I think we are a bit more flexible these days with the way we operate and work, and you can build in components to get balance. I wouldn't say I'm on top of everything. Like everyone, I have emotions and I go through my highs and lows, and I have to kind of slow down at times, but I'm generally good at compartmentalizing and shutting off the day job when I really need to. And I think that's something that takes time, but I feel it's in a good balance at the moment.
It's great to hear. And I mean, being South African, that comes with the birth. What's the birthplace, doesn't it? Sport, outdoor, adventure. I've got to ask, what is are your sports of choice then when you're sort of getting away from the day job?
One constant there, and you're going to say it's cliche, is rugby, because I played rugby and I now coach rugby, and I have been coaching firstly in Singapore for about 7 years from my oldest son's age group, going up with him, and now in Switzerland where we moved in January, and coaching out in Zug, who has a rugby club, and they have some large companies like Glencore and others that are based out there that employ a lot of South Africans, and so you find people of similar ilk, but quite a growing Swiss rugby scene. So I really enjoy the coaching side of it. I think actually I've learned a lot about, leadership, and you're teaching kids, you learn a lot, and they're very honest, and but they also listen and react a lot better than sometimes it is when you work in the work environment. And so you learn a lot about yourself, and you can, I just find that super rewarding. So A few rugby injuries along the way hold me back from playing. I love a touch game, but I still sign up for the odd triathlon and try and get out and do a lot of obviously in Switzerland now, mountain biking and skiing and all the rest. There's wonderful adventure sports which we're getting into, and trying to hold the kids back a bit because they want to go as fast as their friends, but their friends have been born on skis and mountain bikes, so we're adjusting. But I think we tend to, in SA, have the benefit of growing up there as having access to a lot of sports and the weather. So, tennis, golf, and everything else. As a family, we do enjoy. Actually, my wife and oldest son are keen on the golf now as well. So, just looking for a fourth, normally for a 4-ball, will be coming up. But it's just time, and therefore I don't prioritize any particular event or sport whenever I get a chance to participate. I think this year is obviously a bit more challenging getting into a new role. Once things stabilize, of course you can find more time. But I think that the interesting thing that is, if you do get to travel with your role, that has downsides, but the upsides are you get to experience different outdoors experiences. I was just out in Colorado Springs for the CIAB, which is a big US obviously risk and insurance conference, and it runs over the weekend. It's actually quite an intensive program over the weekend and into early the next week. But I found a gap to do when things had quietened down on the back end to get out and jump on a mountain bike. I rented a mountain bike, and it was just fantastic. So, you can always look for opportunities to maximize and combine things.
So, Jonathan, as we look towards the end, I kind of like to ask people what their one prediction is for the year ahead. So we'll give you 2026. So, and then we can come back and see how we got on next year. What for you is the thing you're most intrigued about in the next year that you think is going to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's a lot of topics and trends we've talked about from an industry perspective. One thing that I'm pretty sure of is that South Africa is going to win its 3rd Rugby World Cup in a row. So let's see how we get on with that one.
We'll hold you on that one. I think that might be
could be interesting.
Yeah.
Could be interesting.
I think that might be a little bit too easy, that prediction. And then I'm always really intrigued by the books people read. I find you can learn a lot about someone by a book recommendation or a book that you would gift to somebody else. So I'd love to hear what your, not as your favorite book, a book you would recommend to people is.
It's the answer I give always, and it combines nicely what we've been talking a little bit at the back end of the podcast around sport and adventure. Voyage for Madmen by Peter Nichols. It is a non-fictional book or story about the 1968 first solo non-stop global yacht race. And actually, we talked about a bunch of sports that I am interested in. I'm actually not into yachting. It's not something I grew up with having much exposure to. But the adventure story is thrilling and one of the best put on paper, in my view. So, Voyage for Madmen.
Well, I have not come across that book. At the moment, I've got a rule. I can't start reading any more books until I've finished reading I've got 10 more to get through.
That question every week on a podcast then.
Well, we ask it selectively.
It stacks up.
No, well, I'll definitely look out for that one.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of those adventure stories. And then just before we wrap up, is there anything else we haven't covered that we should be talking about just now? Either whatever you want to talk about, actually, but just to make sure we don't miss that.
No, I mean, I think really appreciate the opportunity. Look, I'm 9 months, 10 months into this role. I actually hope that my story doesn't, and the things that I'm talking about and the relevance to clients and all the rest doesn't change if we go to have this conversation in 12 months. But the point is, things are rapidly changing in the needs, as I say, of our clients. So for those that are listening out there, and as I said, we're always interested to learn more and see what opportunities there are, and partnerships are so critical and important to us. So just kind of emphasize that. But I'm also, to the colleagues of our company, we're actually looking for a period of stability so we can really focus on bringing this new strategy within our business to life. So calmness, stability, and focusing on execution and what we said we would deliver for our clients is really at the heart. After all the interesting opportunity comes the need to deliver. So that's the focus.
Yeah, it's a great mantra. Let's just do what we said we're going to do. And then finally, if people are interested in learning more about the data and analytics you offer, what's the best way to contact Swiss Re?
Sure. So we actually have been, as I talked about, a sort of new strategy of bringing all these capabilities within Risk Data Solutions to life. We've also done that through the material that we put into the public domain. We have a new LinkedIn space, which is really sharing insights and quite clear on products and solutions, you'll find that within the broader Swiss Re pages. So LinkedIn, websites, obviously gives you the material and the key contacts within, obviously, Risk Data Solutions itself. We have people, 160 employees that are directly under the team, and then we leverage a large number of employees from the engineering and tech space. But these are employees positioned all across the globe, so we will no doubt be able to access, at least certainly within region. So contact us, feel free to get in touch, and all that material is on LinkedIn and our websites as well.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Thank you to Swiss Re. And before we let you go, I just want to do one call out to one of your colleagues, Arifi, who has been a fantastic resource with Swiss Re and sort of the integrated link between ourselves and you. And as we're on a podcast, I'm going to put a link for this on this episode, but Arifi was on one of the very early podcasts about what it is to come into insurance from coming from outside of insurance. And it's a really interesting sort of early careers podcast for people. If it hasn't made its way around Swiss Re, I think it's really interesting for people to listen to. But I know Arifi will be sort of going bright red with embarrassment if she hears this, but she really is a real asset and the podcast.
Arifi is fantastic. I will second you on that. And she's been great for us. And actually, I'm meeting with her right after this and together through this. So
we prepare her for her mention on the podcast. But John, that's been tremendous. I'll let you go. I know you've got a lot going on, and it was just really great to talk to you. We covered a lot. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of your not so sunny day, but at least dry in London. And we'll speak again soon. Thanks, Matthew.
Well, if you've made it this far, then I'm pretty sure you found that as interesting as I did. The Instech podcast comes out every Sunday morning, where we spotlight the latest news, leading voices, and freshest updates across insurance that you need to know about. If you would like to take part in these conversations, head to www.instech.co to find out how you can join our network and be a part of the insurance intelligence for the curious.